Hey, welcome back. Yvonne Wakefield's YouTube channel. I read from my books, the series Babe in the Woods. We finished Babe in the Woods, building one life, one log at a time. I'm on to Babe in the Woods self-portrait, and we'll finish with Path of Totality. Tonight I'll read from chapter 20, but I want to give you a little story. So you remember Teddy. Everybody got introduced to him in December when I was fostering puppies. Well, Teddy's a foster fail. I ended up adopting him along with another woman who owns a business just down from my art gallery, and she has Swell Dog Gelato. So this dog got adopted by some really good mommies. Anyway, Teddy Bear had his first birthday party on Friday. He had about 6 of his friends here. They had Swell Dog Gelato. They had cupcakes, which is a new cake that Swell Dog Gelato makes, and something that I'd never seen before. You know the bubbles that you blow in the little jar? Well, these were bacon-flavored bubbles. So if you blew the bubbles, the dogs would jump up and try and eat the bubbles. So anyway, Arturo is going to put a clip up of, or a video of the Teddy Bear's dog party, which is really kind of fun. And they were all good dogs. Weren't you? Oh, and Teddy's got his fall outfit on along with the other boys today because it's mid-October here, and it's starting to get cold. In fact, when I was up at the cabin just yesterday, I was working in the afternoon pulling the hose out of the creek that fills the bathtub in the bathhouse, and a snowstorm came in, and the snow was like blowing sideways. It quit, but there was some skiffs of snow. And the one thing about the cabin is at around 5 o'clock at night, around this time of the year, and even later, it starts to get dark up there because it's on a northern slope. So the nights are really long and the days are really short. And if you can't spend that time working out in the woods, you're inside, lighting kerosene lamps and reading books, doing whatever. So that's what I was doing this weekend. So I just want to recap. Last session, I read 2 chapters, 18 and 19. 18 was called Men, and that was about a trusted friend who tries to take sexual advantage of me, and I redeem my reputation by making lunch for my women neighbors. Chapter 19 continues on where I'm working on building this log studio. It's called The Pour. And I'm working with Jim, who I've hired before. So I find a $100 bill in my boot, which I used to help me pay for the gravel and equipment to continue building the foundation. So tonight we're going to continue. I'm going to go on with The Moon and I, chapter 20. It's a few pages. Just want to let you know also, this book is, all my books are narrated on audio by Kate Webster. She does an excellent job. I do whatever I do here. You know, I stop and I talk and I intervene. I give you a little bit more background. Teddy's bouncing his ball here. That's stuff that is not in the professional narration. So, chapter 20, The Moon and I. In the last few days, I've mixed and poured enough cement to impress Hoover Dam masons. Repetitive manual labor that beefed up my forefathers' arms has also tempered my obliques, taut as purse strings, clinching my celestial dictated reproductive pockets. In other words, my ovaries feel like tennis balls volleyed between top-seeded rivals. My uterus is their warm-up backboard. On top of all the predictable pains associated with mixing and moving an ocean of cement, my friend has arrived. When I was building the cabin, my friend took a hike with secondary amenorrhea. When she decided to return, she arrived hand in hand with regular but excruciating, debilitating menstrual cramps. Now this unwelcome roommate is settling in for a stay to remind me that yes, I can work hard as a man, but still must contend with my fragile female plumbing. So I just want to interject here. So that began this whole episode of having incredible, awful menstrual pains, which ended up in a diagnosis years down the road of endometriosis If anybody's ever had endometriosis, you know the kind of pain I'm talking about. In the evening, after the last 8-hour day of filling forms, I lie in the hammock, well past dark, drinking the Boone's Farm Shelley left behind. I've been saving to share with a bona fide friend who never visits. By dark, the bottle is empty and my cramping friend merely nullified by cheap wine partisan. Groggily clutching my gut, I haul myself up in the loft, wrap in sheets printed with a cartoon bird, the only thing remotely funny in a night I spend curled around bloody pangs, sharp as a freshly filed chisel. The cramps rage on into the morning, and I begin taking 2 Motrin every 4 hours throughout the day I spend in the hammock. Strung out on the porch, I draw a deer skull I found on a hike. Long before weathered white, even bone-eating beetles had lost their appetite for it. I added the skull to my collection of drawing objects stored in a restored slat wood crate. Remember, that's the wood crate that I threw at the butt of that big horse buster. The skull is positioned on an upended side of the box so it is eye level, and I don't have to raise my own too much to see the bone head. Late that afternoon, it begins to rain, a needed diversion as I am identifying too much with what I draw. I replace the skull inside the crate and take my cramp indoors. By late afternoon, it is dark enough outside to justify lighting a lamp inside. Wind gusts drive wet sheets sideways onto the porch, soaking the hammock. I stare at the flaming wick, worry rain will hamper the cellar walls curing, and I nosh down the end bag package of Keebler's shortbreads, running a finger inside the wrapping when the last cookie is eaten. I feel even emptier when the lone remaining club crumb is sucked clean off my tweezed thumb, and wish small elves would appear to bake a big, fresh batch of uncommonly good cookies, an apparition as depleted as the Motrin and wine bottles. The second rainy day is as stimulating as the first was. I read, write, and draw. Reverse the order, draw, write, read. Then stare at the limp hammock outside the porch to keep from thinking about how the rain could also be soaking through the form boards. Remember in the chapter before, we had just poured the form board walls. The hunger is gnawing above my agonized abdomen. Since the bears had their way, I've not replaced my grain and legume survival stores. 2 cans of green, giant French cut beans, 1 can of tuna, and a package of saltines are the only edibles in store. Fresh supplies are only 13 miles away, but the mountain road runs with mud so slick, even the nimble Datsun couldn't make it past the Rosip gate. I know this is fact. The little truck remains stuck in mud from an aborted escape attempt on the rainy day, number 2. On the 3rd day, rain turns to drizzle and my hopes rise, then sink again in the afternoon when the sky lobs water balloons. My food supply has gone the way of prescription meds and rot gut, which only tamed the cramps to a dull ache. My soul for cookies, a bottle of wine, anything to punctuate the boredom of being stuck in my own numb head. I could hike down in conditions that have turned shit and slide, the Eliminator, into the Nile River and drive Tank to town. Remember, Tank is the big old truck I keep parked down the mountain. And drive Tank to town from where it is parked in the judge's meadow. This little bouncing you hear is Teddy's playing with this ball while I'm trying to read, and it's distracting. Now he's trying to get it from under the lights. But driving Tank back would only end in the same calamity that claimed the Datsun. Plus, everything I've ingested to nullify my friend has made my legs wobbly. At this point, it is safer to starve than to set out shakily in search of food. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner that day are the same. A mix of tuna and crackers kept chilled in the creek and rationed out in 5-hour increments. My mood and my belly contrary to a gang of happy little elves. Arturo, could you take that ball away from me? It's so annoying. Give him that one. Take the golf ball. Thank you. Now he's trying to jump up, get the ball. Now he'll cry. Ugh. Okay. By early evening of that third rained-in day, showers have relented, and so has my pain. I feel strong enough to go on a short painting trip. I pull on a thick wool shirt, shoulder the French easel, and hike across the creek to my favorite old juniper. Storm clouds scud overhead like bumper cars wheeled by drunken winds. Safe and sheltered from this mayhem under ancient boughs, I paint until the slight drizzle becomes raindrops again. By the time I've packed up the easel, it is pouring. Rain models the painstaking blended sky, even as I shield the canvas against my thigh. All right, you guys, knock it off over there. I no longer pack the cumbersome rifle. It stays in the truck. Boo-Boo, remember that's the name I gave the pistol. Boo-Boo hangs from my belt, leaving one hand free to carry the painting, the other for bushwhacking and balancing on a log across the creek. Back at the cabin, I leave the easel on the porch, bring the painting inside to dry, stoke the fire, stare out the window, and watch the clouds part, the moon rise. My hollow, growling gut reminds me it is the only full thing around. There is only sleep to fill me. I wash my hands of the evening's work and crawl up in the loft to consume it. When I first moved into the cabin, insomnia, which I'd never known before, visited me, welcome as a bedfellow who kicks and snores. On sleepless nights, when it was out, I charted the moon's arc through the 3 loft windows until it sank in the west and the east fired red. I climb down from the loft and unfold the easel under the shelter of the porch. The moon above the pines is perfect as a vanilla Necco wafer I would stand on my tippy toes to lick, so perfectly round that if I painted it exactly as it appeared, it would look like it belonged inked in a newspaper cartoon strip. Squeezing paint on a palette, I mix values, the smell of linseed oil in my paint cup, and tuna on my breath. As I mound Prussian blue tones, I feel something stir inside me, and it isn't menstrual throbbing. A crystal clear energy rounds my belly, visceral motions I don't want to stop, kind of like being on a roller coaster, but without feeling carsick. I set my brushes on the easels, walk down the steps, stand on the hillside and raise my hands. My shirt too hikes up, exposing my navel to the moon, my solar plexus, the bull's eye of lunar light. Hands overhead, feeling the planetary pull. I must drop to my hands and knees because there is no shrubbery within reach to anchor me to an earth I am not yet ready to leave. Hollowed out by hunger, I am a conduit. The lunar attraction strong enough to pull me off my feet is either a freak, mystical exchange or an indicator that I need a solid meal pretty quick. By morning, the rain has stopped, the sun is out, and while I wait for the road to soak up, I handsaw 2 24-inch circles of quarter-inch masonite, then stretch and gesso pieces of old cotton sheet over each. I'd been drawing in circles, now I decided to paint in them. Jamming twigs and branches under the tires, gunning it back and forth, I free the truck, then head to town. It's dusk by the time I drive back and park in the judge's meadow. With Yogi resting beside a preset pallet, I eat cheese and crackers on the tailgate and wait. The pine-tipped mountain ridge threatens to poke a hole in the moon as it rises up bright enough for me to discern the palette's values of Prussian blue, burnt sienna, and white. Bright enough to feel 2 circles with moonlight forest silhouettes, I sleep like a log that night. In the morning, critiquing these paintings, I conclude they are trite. By my second cup of coffee, I'm still wondering why I didn't find success overnight. The compositions look like pages from a children's coloring book. When are you going to stop fooling around and start to paint? I chide myself, sulk, give in to my ineptitude, and accept the fact I'm a half-baked neophyte at just about whatever I do. I take another sip of coffee, then answer myself. I am not fooling around. It's just that I'm painting from the inside out, where there is more to see than meets the eye. There's a picture in that chapter 20. This this picture here, and it's actually, I actually have the original. I think Arturo's going to get it for me, and it's under this plastic stuff, so it's probably hard to see. But this is done in rapidograph pans. If you ever remember that, you have to fill these like little cartridges and stick them into the pan and dot like that. So this was actually illustrated during the time I just wrote about. And then I mentioned about painting in circles. For years, all I did was paint in round circles. I took it up again. This is a scene that, can you see that? This is a scene I painted from my deck upstairs of the Columbia River, and you can look over on the Washington side. But I quit painting in circles because the frames are so expensive. Like that frame a million years ago cost $120. It'd probably be like 600 now. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this, will you please subscribe to my YouTube channel? Look at the podcast. Buy a book. Tell your friends about the books. And we'll see you next week. I'm going to go up to the cabin a couple more times before the snow hits too hard. But remember, Arturo's going to put up next week this photograph. Last time I was up at the cabin, I actually got up on there on a rope to get the pine needles out of all the little cracks. And so this time when I was up there this week, it really made a difference. You could see how differently the water ran off the metal roof. So if you can get up to your roof and get those little pine needles out and those leaves before winter hits big, do it. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing Teddy Bear's birthday party. And we'll see you later. Remember, hydrate. Bye-bye.